Joining us now, Ezra Klein, staff writer for The Washington Post, and with us as well, liberal blogger Cenk from the Young Turks. Cenk, who do you think wins here in this battle for the soul of the Democratic Party?
Well, on these issues, I tend to be a little pessimistic. I think you have described it exactly right. They're battling for the soul right now, the Democratic Party, and I think probably the corporatists will win. The progressives almost never win, so it would be a tremendous surprise if they pulled out the victory here. I hope they're strong and hold on, but that's not what history indicates.
Isn't truth the friend of those who would tell the truth, Cenk?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
No, I have to be honest with you. Outside of this show, there aren't a lot of media shows out there that help the truth tellers. Because they don't, I mean, every media report I hear is talking about how Democrats and Obama are fighting for strong reform, and the question is whether they'll get that strong reform or not. It's not strong at all. I mean, you're the only one on TV that seems to be telling us the truth, which is that it's actually totally weak reform, and we're having this joke between weak reform or the Republican version, which is no reform. So I think we're in a tight spot. Yeah, we're in a tight spot. But you're right. The Kaufmans of the world and Bernie Sanders, etc., we hope they can put up a good battle because they're our last hope.
Here's the thing on the whole truth thing in television, Cenk. This show's rating very well, which may actually result in other people trying to imitate us and going out and tell the truth, which wouldn't be a bad thing. Ezra, how do you analyze what's going on inside the Democratic Party right now?
Well, I think it's what you see a lot, right? I think you're exactly right to say that they're moving it very fast because they're worried about too much debate. And I don't know if it's because they're trying to hide something, but what they learned from health care reform, right, was when they let it sit out there, when they let it drag out, the other side got their opposition together, they figured out what they wanted to criticize, and they don't want that again. They want to move this while the politics are on their side and quick. And in that way, and this I think is a bigger problem than people recognize, they're taking advantage of the fact that people in general, and a lot of legislators in particular, don't understand this stuff very well. Healthcare reform, it was complicated, yeah, but we'd done this before. There was a whole intellectual infrastructure in this town devoted to understanding healthcare reform. These guys don't know who to call. They don't know how these deals work. So there are a lot of folks who just want to get, they want to get on the right side of the Wall Street politics and then get it off of the table.
What is hard to understand for a Washington politician, Ezra, about eliminating bank secrets, transparency, which Blanche Lincoln seems to get, and yet there's resistance from Senator Dodd to Blanche Lincoln's derivatives proposal, which is maybe the only redeeming aspect of this legislation. What is hard for a politician to understand, Ezra, about the ratings agencies being employed by the very banks whose bonds they rate, as opposed to the pension funds that buy those bonds?
Let's take the two things separately. On Lincoln's proposal, which I think is in many ways a very good proposal, and I agree the only part of this reform that is really Wall Street reform, the opposition, as I understand it, mainly comes to spinning off the swaps desks from the larger banks. That is to say, the parts that do derivatives would have to not be part of the banks if the banks are going to have access to the Federal Reserve window. They're worried about that. They say they're worried about that because it would be disruption, it's overkill, it would crash the derivatives market for a while, the economy's still fragile. That's the argument there. Nobody was expecting it, and now they don't know what to do with it.
It is indefensible. I don't care if you are a 4-year-old from Mars. If I tell you I am going to gin up exotic instruments, and then I need to get a good housekeeping seal of approval called a AAA rating in order to sell this concoction of bonds to the retirees, the teachers, the policemen, etc. But I'm going to make it legal for those who are selling those bonds to pay off the people who rate them, sell them to the pension manager, and then wager with massive leverage that that pension manager is going to take it in the gut. I don't know whether you need an intellectual infrastructure or not in Washington, D.C. to understand the obvious and disastrous conflict of the fact that the regulators and the ratings agencies, Ezra, and not that you came up with this, but that those people work for the banks. I don't know how much. What, do I need a think tank to figure out that that's a conflict of interest?
We're in agreement on this part in particular, and it's why what is so weird about the bill is how weak it is on ratings agencies. There are a lot of these bits that are complicated. Derivatives, I think we would agree, understanding derivatives is complicated for these guys.
We could go all day with that.
And you don't need to. But the ratings agencies should not be employed by the banks.
This is the simplest piece of this legislation. We've been 2 years. Millions of people have lost their jobs. 1 out of 5 under 25 doesn't have a job. Houses are underwater. Retirees are getting 0%. And our Congress wants to rush a bill that keeps the ratings agencies working for the banks after all this has gone down. Cenk, it's funny. I'm going to leave it at that. I honestly don't even, there aren't words for it. It's the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. They said that this is an issue that is smart versus stupid, not left versus right. And it appears to me stupid is winning. Gentlemen, thank you for the time.